Hello, my name is Julie Fry and I'm the curator at Stan Hywet Hall and Gardens. 2023 marks the 125th anniversary of the founding of the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. In recognition of this tremendous achievement, we are going to execute a 10-part video series, which will begin in March and run throughout 2023, one premiering each month. The Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company was founded by F.A. and his brother C.W. Cyberling, and F.A. and his wife Gertrude were also the masterminds behind the creation and construction of Stan Hywet Hall and Gardens. In this episode, we're going to talk about the deaf community that was brought to Akron and really thrived here due to the encouragement of Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company and also the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. So prior to World War I, there was a very small population of deaf people living in Akron, some of whom were employed in the rubber industry. However, deaf people, for the most part, were considered to have low intelligence. They were considered incompetent because of the disability that they had. So they weren't treated very much in the same way as other people. When World War I started in 1917, a lot of very able-bodied young men left Akron to join the military and go fight overseas. Goodyear lost 6,200 employees at that time to military service. This proved a very big challenge for the company, Goodyear as well as many other rubber companies, because they had really extensive war contracts that they had to fulfill, so they needed labor in place to still operate all of the machinery in the factory. Of course, they turned to people that were not able to serve in the military for a variety of medical or personal reasons, as well as then also hiring women to come in and work in the factories during World War I. But another population that they actually turned to was the deaf community. It started with the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, but also then started to spread to others, including Goodyear, where a few deaf people were hired. And then of course people made the recognition that when they started to work alongside someone who was deaf, that they were actually just the same as they were, and that there was no difference in intelligence, no difference in work ability, just because of their disability. So this caused the rubber companies to think about hiring more. They actually put advertisements in deaf publications, reached out to schools and universities that provided academic opportunities for deaf people to let them know, hey, if you move to Akron, you can find work here, you can have jobs, you don't just have to be a janitor, you don't just kind of have to have some of those lower tier jobs that deaf people were normally kind of segregated to. So the population really exploded in Akron, and between World War I and World War II, Akron had the largest deaf population of any city in the country because they really fostered this community and supported them and made them feel welcome in Akron. The rubber companies did such things as having sports teams that were all deaf players. At Goodyear, they were called the Goodyear Silents. Their football team was actually semi-professional and was made almost entirely of deaf players. And between 1915 and 1927, they played against other local and regional semi-pro teams and had an all-time record of 68 wins and 11 losses, and including winning several league championships. They also held classes for deaf employees. They had private lounges, reading rooms. They had whole shifts now of just deaf workers so that they could communicate with themselves using sign language and work most efficiently together. Other people who were not deaf learned sign language so they could communicate with the deaf community while working alongside of them. So it really became a collaborative community effort to integrate deaf people into Akron in a lot of different ways. So FA helped this population overcome these negative stereotypes. In 1918, W.P. Souter, who was chairman of the National Association for the Deaf, traveled to Akron and praised Goodyear and other rubber companies for their tolerance in hiring deaf workers. This is a quote from the Akron Beacon Journal when he visited. "Equal pay for equal work and no apparent limits is the height an individual may climb. I'm using this as an example in my work before Congress." So he was able to go back to Washington, D.C. and say, as he's advocating for the deaf community, look how Akron has really raised this community up and embraced them and integrated them fully into every aspect of community life. Please join me next month where we continue to share tidbits and insights into early Goodyear history.